Who decides bailouts? And who is quietly sent to bankruptcy? Because in this system, bailout versus bankruptcy is never random. You're told the financial system is fair. That's the first lie. Is financial system corruption hidden behind complexity? There is hidden power in finance, deciding winners and losers. Too big to fail banks don't fear the collapse. You do. This is the Federal Reserve explained without the lines. Money printing consequences. Inflation steals your money silently. Street bailouts are paid by people who never agreed. How the economy really works. Shh. Keep watching. Financial awakening. Because the system is rigged.
Why is it that when you make one bad financial decision, your life can collapse overnight? But when a giant financial institution gambles with the entire global economy, it gets rescued? This isn't a philosophical question. This already happened in 2008. And the consequences are still haunting you today. Picture a small bakery owner. Let's call him John. John wakes up before dawn, works 16, sometimes 18 hours a day, and takes a calculated risk to grow his business. Maybe demand drops. Maybe the economy turns. John misses payments. What happens next is brutal and immediate. Creditors knock. His credit is destroyed. Equipment is seized, sometimes even his home. And the system shrugs and says, "That's the free market. You took a risk. You lost." Now cut to Wall Street, a glass tower, a corner office. Executives at major investment banks leverage billions on toxic financial bets. Risks so reckless, they threaten the entire global system. They don't lose just their money. They put everyone's savings, jobs, and futures on the table. But when it all collapses, something very different happens. No foreclosure, no shame, no consequences. The government steps in. Bailouts are approved. Bonuses are paid. Champagne flows. That contrast, John losing everything while institutions are saved at all costs, is not a glitch in the system. It is the system. If you've ever felt like the game is rigged, like the rules change depending on who's playing, that feeling isn't paranoia, it's pattern recognition. We're taught to believe in a fair, self-correcting free market, an invisible hand that rewards responsibility and punishes recklessness. But what if that hand isn't invisible at all? What if it's selectively shielding the powerful? Here's the uncomfortable truth most textbooks avoid. We don't live in a free market. We live in a managed hierarchy. A system where profits are private, but losses are public. When they win, they keep everything. When they fail, you absorb the damage through inflation, taxes, lost jobs, and shrinking savings. This is where the illusion starts to crack, because the line between legitimate business and white-collar crime has become almost impossible to see. Not because it disappeared, but because it was legalized, normalized, and wrapped in complex language designed to confuse you into silence. Stay with me, because to understand what's really happening, we have to strip away the jargon, the charts, and the polished speeches. When you do that, what's left doesn't look like a free market at all. It looks like a protected club, a cartel of institutions deemed too big to fail, where membership guarantees rescue and exclusion means ruin. And if you've ever wondered why those banks keep getting bigger, while your savings feel smaller every year, you're asking the right question. But the real answer isn't simple, and it isn't comfortable. To find it, we have to look inside the machine itself, at who built it, how it works, and why they desperately hope you never see how the trick is done. It hits hard when you realize this isn't about laziness or bad choices. It's about the ground being tilted against you from the start. And if this realization triggered something inside you, if you're tired of being told everything is fine while your money buys less every year, pause for 1 second and hit the like button. Not for the platform, but as a signal that you see through the illusion too. This channel isn't just about telling stories. It's about building a space for people who refuse to be gaslit by the system. People who sense something is wrong and want to understand why. If that sounds like you, make sure you're subscribed, because what we're about to uncover goes far deeper than most are willing to admit. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now let me ask you something personal. Have you ever felt this double standard in your own life? A loan denied over a technicality. A small business crushed while corporations get rescued without consequences. If you've lived this, share it in the comments. Your experience matters, and together, these stories form the proof that this isn't theory. It's reality. Because to understand how they keep getting away with it, we have to look at the rule book they play by. A mechanism so well designed that it turns the economy into a casino where the house never loses, because the chips were never theirs to begin with. If we accept the official story at face value, we completely miss what actually powers this system. So let's strip away the press releases, the smiling experts on TV, and the polished language, and look at a structure that feels disturbingly familiar. When people think about organized crime, they imagine the mafia, secret meetings, loyalty codes, protection schemes. But here's the unsettling truth. The most efficient racket in history doesn't operate in dark alleys. It operates in plain sight, inside trading floors and government buildings. And once you see the parallel, it's impossible to ignore. Think about the classic mafia protection scheme. A mobster walks into a shop and calmly says, "Nice place you have here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it." The shopkeeper pays, not because he's getting protection, but because he's being protected from the people demanding the money. Pause for a second, because this exact logic exists in modern finance. Megabanks look at governments and taxpayers and deliver the same message, just with better suits. "Nice economy you have here. It would be a shame if the credit system collapsed." That's not a market negotiation. That's a hostage situation dressed up as policy. This is where everything clicks. This is where we meet the core mechanism holding the whole system together: moral hazard. In a healthy economy, risk and consequence are inseparable. You take smart risks, you win. You take reckless risks, you pay the price. That fear of loss is the guardrail. It keeps behavior in check. But on Wall Street, that guardrail was quietly removed. Risk stayed, consequences didn't. And once that link was broken, the behavior changed overnight. Now the game looks like this. They gamble with leverage so extreme it would terrify a professional casino player. Except they aren't betting their own money. They're betting the system itself. If the gamble works, they walk away with massive bonuses, prestige, and power. If it fails, they don't collapse with the rest of us. They hand the bill to the public. Heads they win, tails you lose. That's not capitalism. That's extraction. Let's pause and summarize this emotionally, because it matters. Profits are private. Losses are public. This isn't a flaw. It's the design. This is the operating system. And like the mafia's code of silence, omerta, finance has its own version. But instead of threats and violence, it uses complexity, derivatives, swaps, obligations layered on obligations. The goal isn't efficiency. The goal is confusion, because confusion protects power. If people feel too unqualified to question it, the system stays invisible. Now here's the comparison that should make you uncomfortable. Think about Al Capone, one of the most powerful criminals in American history. Why did he eventually go to prison? Because he broke the law. He operated outside the legal system. Now look at the architects of financial collapses. Why aren't they in prison? The answer is chillingly simple. Street criminals break the law. White-collar criminals write the law. When you can fund campaigns, lobby legislators, and place your own people inside regulatory agencies, you don't need to hide. You don't need to launder money in back rooms. You legalize your behavior. You normalize it. That's the difference between a racket and a regime. Al Capone had to conceal his wealth. These institutions announce theirs on earnings calls. And this is where the feeling of helplessness comes from. Because the rules are absolute for you. Miss a payment, and the system moves instantly. But for them, the rules are flexible, negotiable, and retroactive. A $1 trillion mistake becomes a systemic necessity. Your mistake becomes a personal failure. What we're really describing here isn't just greed. It's something far more dangerous. A structural capture of the state. A system where government becomes an insurance company for elite risk-taking. And the premiums. You pay them through inflation, stagnant wages, eroded savings, and collapsing public services. Every bailout dollar quietly reduces your purchasing power. It's an invisible tax, approved by people you never elected. This is why this conversation isn't about the past. It's about right now. The system survives because people are taught to believe this is just how it works, that finance is too complex to question. But once you see behind the curtain, the mechanism is shockingly simple. It's a wealth transfer machine, pulling value from the real economy, from people who build, fix, and serve, and funneling it upward to those who speculate and shuffle paper. And once you understand that, everything changes. Economic crashes stop looking like natural disasters. They start looking like controlled demolitions, events where the exits were secured long before the collapse. You stop seeing yourself as unlucky and start seeing the game. That shift is dangerous to them, because once you see the strings, you can't unsee them. You start questioning every narrative, every expert, every reassurance. And that brings us to the edge of the story. Because now that we understand the motive and the mechanism, there's only one thing left to examine. The moment the whole system fell apart, and who was saved when it did. Before we go there, I need to know something. Are you seeing it? If you are, drop a comment and write, "I see the game." What happened in 2008 is the reason your life is more expensive today. Higher rent, pricier homes, groceries that never seem to come back down. So if we're treating this like a real investigation, we have to return to the crime scene, because this is the moment everything was exposed. Most people remember 2008 as chaos. Retirement accounts vanished. Foreclosure signs multiplied like gravestones across quiet neighborhoods. Fear was everywhere. But here's the part rarely said out loud. For the architects of the financial system, 2008 wasn't a tragedy. It was a successful test. It was the moment they proved that when cornered, they could take the entire economy hostage, and the public would pay the ransom. This wasn't a market correction. It was a controlled demolition, followed by a selective resurrection. The system didn't collapse. It revealed who mattered. And that's when too big to fail stopped being a warning and became a threat. Here's what the mainstream story avoids. We were told the crash was unpredictable, a perfect storm. Nobody saw it coming. That's false. Inside the banks, executives knew exactly what they were selling. Mortgage-backed securities built on loans designed to fail were labeled safe, shipped across the world, and then quietly bet against by the same institutions selling them. In any normal industry, that's fraud. On Wall Street, it was called innovation. When the house of cards finally fell, there was no panic in the executive suites, no fear of prison, no accountability. Instead, they turned to the government and pulled the ultimate weapon: fear. Save us, or the ATMs stop working. Save us, or food trucks stop rolling. Save us, or society freezes. And it worked. Checks were signed, trillions were committed. But what almost no one says is this: this wasn't a rescue. It was the largest wealth transfer in modern history. While millions of families were being evicted from homes they never should have been sold in the first place, taxpayer money was making the banks whole. Let that sink in. The victims paid to save the perpetrators. That's not just injustice, that's betrayal. And then came the moment that should have ended all doubt. Record bonuses, paid to the same executives who drove the system into the wall. In a real free market, failure is punished. In this system, failure is rewarded. That's when too big to fail revealed its real meaning: too big to jail. The lesson was clear and permanent. Recklessness doesn't bring consequences, it brings a safety net. Gamble bigger next time. The Federal Reserve has a printer. That single decision poisoned the entire economic landscape. We moved from capitalism to something closer to corporate feudalism, where the lords are protected and the public maintains the castle. And the damage wasn't just financial. It was psychological. Trust collapsed. People felt the game was fixed because it was. The bailout wasn't an emergency measure, it was a guarantee. A promise that the financial sector would never truly lose again. Behind the scenes, this wasn't a negotiation. It was coordination. Calls between CEOs and Treasury officials weren't about accountability. They were about logistics. And they counted on something else too. That public outrage would burn hot and fast, then fade. But the aftershocks never stopped. Asset prices inflated. Home ownership slipped out of reach. The wealth gap exploded. These weren't side effects. They were the outcome. 2008 showed us something the invisible hand was never supposed to reveal. The visible hand of power. And that hand didn't save workers, small businesses, or communities. It saved the architects. It created a two-tier system. Rigid law for the street, flexible law for the suite. And it forces a terrifying question. How did they gain so much power that they could hold the world hostage and get paid for it? Because the truth is darker than money. It's access. It's influence. It's a club so exclusive that its members write the rules meant to restrain them. The line between bank and state didn't blur. It vanished. And that leads us to the next layer of the machine. Because the system survives for one reason. The same people keep switching sides of the table. Regulators become bankers. Bankers become regulators. The game never changes because the players never leave. It's called the revolving door, and it's spinning faster than ever. If you see the double standard, write in the comments, justice was blind. Up to this point, we've exposed the crime. Now comes the part that changes everything. Identifying who keeps committing it and why they're never punished. Because once you see the perpetrators clearly, the entire system snaps into focus. We're taught to think of Wall Street and the government as two separate worlds. One plays the game, the other enforces the rules. One takes risks, the other blows the whistle. But here's the reality, no one spells out. The referee and the star player are often the same person, just switching jerseys at halftime. This is the moment we meet the most powerful mechanism in modern political economy, the revolving door. This isn't speculation. It's documented, repeatable, and systemic. The revolving door is the seamless movement of people between top government regulatory positions and ultra-high-paying jobs inside the very banks they're supposed to police. In a healthy democracy, there's supposed to be a firewall between regulator and regulated. Here, that firewall doesn't exist. It's been replaced by a red carpet. Let's make this concrete. Picture a familiar path. A finance executive spends years at a major investment bank, helping design complex financial products that juice profits and quietly increase systemic risk. He makes millions, builds influence, proves loyalty. Then a crisis hits. Suddenly, the government needs an expert. And who do they call? Him. Overnight, he's appointed Treasury Secretary or head regulator, now responsible for overseeing the institution he just left and may soon return to. At that moment, this isn't oversight. It's self-policing. People usually call this a conflict of interest. But that phrase is too weak. A conflict implies tension, a difficult choice between duty and self-interest. That's not what's happening here. This is a fusion of interests. Everyone in the room wants the same outcome. The regulator knows that if he's cooperative, if the rules have loopholes, if the bailout has no teeth, a lucrative board seat or corner office is waiting when his public term ends. It's not a bribe. It's a deferred payout. This creates a closed ecosystem where accountability never enters the room. When the same people who helped break the economy are hired to fix it, the solution will always protect them first. That's why after every crisis, the banks get bigger, not smaller. Regulations get softer, not stricter. And when people ask, how is this legal? The answer is chillingly simple. It's legal because they wrote the laws. This isn't a conspiracy. It's a career path. Now think about what this means in practice. When a regulator sits across from a bank CEO, he isn't seeing a suspect. He's seeing a peer. Someone from the same social class, same circles, same vacations, same private schools for their kids. Punishing that bank wouldn't just be professional, it would be social betrayal. So instead of justice, we get settlements. Instead of prison, we get fines. And those fines? They're treated like a business expense, just another cost of doing business. This is where the illusion of protection collapses. We're raised to believe government exists to shield the public from predatory corporations. But the revolving door reveals something darker. In high finance, government often functions as a talent pipeline for corporations. Public service isn't sacrifice, it's resume building. Authority is accumulated, then monetized. That's why nothing fundamentally changes no matter who wins elections. Faces change, parties rotate, but the power network remains intact. The financial lobby doesn't just influence policy, it installs personnel. This is regulatory capture in its purest form. Agencies meant to defend the public instead serve the interests of those they oversee. Realizing this can feel demoralizing. It can make you feel like every door to stability is guarded by people who already have the keys. But there's power in clarity. Once you understand that many of the experts reassuring you on TV are financially invested in the story they're selling, you stop listening passively. You start asking why they're saying it and who benefits. Here's the truth they don't want you to see. The system isn't broken. It's functioning exactly as designed. For them. The revolving door keeps outsiders away from the controls. It keeps the machine running smoothly, quietly transferring risk downward while prestige and protection flow upward. And the cost of maintaining that machine isn't abstract. It's personal. It shows up in your rent, your interest rates, your job insecurity, and the shrinking value of your savings. This corruption isn't just a theory. It's an invoice, and it's billed to your life every single day. If you're done pretending this is fair, write in the comments. The game is rigged. Understanding who did this and how they did it is important. But the part that should really make your blood boil is the price tag. What this system quietly takes from you every single day. We're conditioned to believe that when the government announces a massive bailout, the money appears out of thin air. Headlines flash numbers so large they feel abstract. Trillions approved. Markets stabilized. Crisis averted. And we're trained to exhale in relief. But almost no one asks the only question that actually matters. Whose money was that? Here's the uncomfortable reality they rely on you not thinking about. The government doesn't generate money. It produces nothing. It sells nothing. It only redistributes what already exists. And there are only two ways it gets that money. Directly, by taxing your paycheck, or indirectly, by printing currency. When it comes to saving Wall Street, they always choose the second option, because you don't see the bill arrive. This is the invisible tax. Think of it as a modern protection fee. In mafia stories, the shop owner hands over cash so his store isn't destroyed. In today's system, you pay that fee at the grocery store, at the gas pump, and when your rent goes up again. When central banks create new money to absorb bad bank bets, wrapped in sterile terms like quantitative easing, they dilute the currency supply. Here's the simplest way to see it. Imagine the economy as a punch bowl. That punch represents all real value, labor, goods, productivity. When trillions are poured in to protect the VIPs, the bowl looks fuller. But the punch is weaker, less flavor, less kick. Your savings didn't disappear. They were watered down. The numbers stayed the same. The value was stolen. And this is the hidden truth most people never hear. Inflation is not an accident. It's not a natural disaster. It's not bad luck. It's a policy choice. It transfers wealth from people who save, workers, retirees, to people who hold assets and debt. The banks get the new money first, at near zero interest. They buy stocks, real estate, and assets. Prices rise. By the time that money reaches your wages, everything costs more. Short version, you're always last in line. This creates a cruel inversion of responsibility. If you save, you lose. If you're careful, you're punished. Your savings erode faster than interest can protect them. You pay a negative return on your life's work. Meanwhile, reckless speculation is rewarded. Debt gets inflated away. Asset prices soar. The system teaches one lesson. Prudence is for suckers. And that pressure seeps into your daily life. A constant hum of anxiety. You work harder, earn more on paper, yet somehow feel poorer. The dream slips further away. This isn't a failure of discipline. It's the insurance premium for protecting the financial elite. You pay it, they collect it. It gets worse when you look at interest rates. Banks borrow from the central bank at near zero. But you pay 7%, 15%, sometimes 25% on credit cards. That gap, free money for them, expensive money for you, is pure extraction. It's not risk-based, it's power-based. This is corruption in its most personal form, because money is just stored time, hours of your life. When currency is devalued, they aren't just stealing dollars. They're stealing time you can never recover. That's the moral crime at the center of the system. And then comes the gaslighting. You're told inflation is transitory, or caused by supply chains, or wars, or weather. Anything but the printing press. Because admitting that would mean admitting the truth. The stability of financial markets is being purchased with the slow erosion of your standard of living. So when you see a banker testify solemnly before Congress, remember this. His safety net is woven from your purchasing power. The bailout wasn't free. It was a tax on your future, and your children's future. The connection is kept deliberately hidden. Because once you see how the bailout shows up on your grocery receipt, you can't unsee it. Every dollar printed is a microscopic theft from every dollar you hold. You are a silent partner in a rigged partnership. You provide the capital, you absorb the losses. And yes, that realization is heavy. It can feel overwhelming. But it's also the moment you stop being a passive victim and start seeing the terrain clearly. We've exposed the players, the methods, the cost. Which leaves one final question hanging in the air. If the game is this rigged, where does it end? And more importantly, is there any way to leave the casino before the house takes everything? If this hit home, write in the comments, I am paying the price. If we zoom out and look at the full picture we've uncovered, what we see is not a free market. It's a casino. A casino where the house has rigged the machines, marked the cards, and bribed the regulators, then still lectures you about fair play. Seeing this for the first time is jarring. It rewires how you see money, work, and success. You stop blaming yourself for not running fast enough and start noticing the tilted floor beneath your feet. This isn't pessimism, it's clarity. And clarity, even when it hurts, is the beginning of real power. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. The system is not broken. It's working exactly as designed. A structure that reliably transfers wealth from the many to the few, across decades and crises, is not failing. It's succeeding. Every bailout, every emergency measure, every policy framed as stability is really about one thing: protecting asset prices at your expense. Once you see that, you stop waiting for rescue. You stop believing the next election will fix it. Because for the people at the top, nothing needs fixing. This is the fork in the road. Stay asleep and you remain predictable. Your labor fuels the machine. Your savings evaporate quietly. Your future becomes collateral. But wake up, and everything changes. Not because you become reckless or radical, but because you stop playing a rigged game. Awareness alone makes you dangerous to a system that depends on confusion. The unseen architects survive on complexity, on jargon, on your exhaustion. They need you to believe that terms like quantitative easing are harmless technicalities, not what they truly are: legalized dilution of your money. But here is the line they can never cross. They can print currency, they can inflate assets, they can rewrite rules, but they cannot print understanding. They cannot manufacture awareness. They may control the money, but you can control the meaning. And in an age built on distraction and deceit, understanding the system is leverage. This isn't about rage, it's about strategy. When you understand that labor is systematically devalued and assets are systematically inflated, your mindset shifts. You stop chasing stability in a currency designed to decay. You stop thinking only as a worker and start thinking like an owner. You begin building resilience instead of illusions. Make no mistake, this system will not change because of morality. Power does not surrender out of guilt. It only shifts when people refuse to absorb the cost in silence. History shows this pattern over and over again. Profits are privatized, losses are socialized, and the bill is sent to the public. The next crisis is not a question of if, but when. And they are betting that fear will make you comply again. But this time is different. Because now people are paying attention. We're connecting the dots. We're translating the language. We're naming the game. A population that understands finance is the greatest threat to financial corruption. When people realize that liquidity means inflation, that too big to fail is a threat, not a safety net, the spell breaks. If you feel small right now, that's natural. These systems are designed to make individuals feel powerless. But remember this, every massive structure has a weakness, and this one depends on darkness. It needs ignorance to function. Awareness is light, and light collapses illusions. You don't need permission to protect yourself. You don't need approval to think differently. The casino is rigged. The dealer is corrupt. But that doesn't mean you're destined to lose. It just means you stop playing by their rules and start playing by your own. Drop a comment and write, "I am waking up." Let's mark this moment. If you're still here, that already says everything. It means you're not here for headlines or comfort. You're here to understand how the machine actually works. And that's exactly who this channel is for. If you don't want to stay in the dark while the rules are written above your head, subscribe now. Don't miss what comes next. If this video put words to something you've felt for a long time, hit like. It's quick, but it helps this message reach people who are waking up right now. And if you made it to the end, prove it. Drop a comment and write, "I'm paying attention." This isn't about numbers. It's about finding the ones who see through the illusion. This was only step one. To understand who controls the money, you need to understand where that power came from. The next video on your screen breaks down the real history of the Federal Reserve, and once you watch it, you'll never see money the same way again. Click it now. The conversation continues. The conversation